Breaking news on Buckeye Breakdown. Along with Tommy Zagorski, I'm Brendan Gulick. And according to Austin Ward and Lettermen Row, first to report that the Ohio State Buckeyes are zeroing in on Jim Knowles as a new defensive coordinator for the Ohio State defense, perhaps as soon as the Rose Bowl. We'll have to wait and see. It sounds like there is an agreement in principle, according to Austin's report, but there are some other things at stake. We'll do a quick breakdown for you, reacting to this news, including what to know about Jim Knowles and what exactly he accomplished at Oklahoma State this year. It's coming up on a quick edition of Buckeye Breakdown. We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here.
Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. Well, happy Tuesday afternoon, everybody. Alongside Tommy Zagorski, I'm Brendan Gulick, and it sounds like the Ohio State Buckeyes have certainly zeroed in on their guy. There is no contract signed. That may have something to do with the fact the Buckeyes would have to make a corresponding move, perhaps with National Signing Day coming next week. There's a lot of different things at play here. Of course, the coaching market has been as wild as we've ever seen it in college football. Coach, your initial reactions to what sounds like having a guy who's coming off of an unbelievable season potentially coming to Columbus to run the defense.
Yeah, Ryan Day goes out and gets Jim Knowles, who is a defensive guy who's coached at a lot of different places, an interesting background. He's Ivy League educated, worked on Wall Street for like a year, and then missed football. And he's an inner city tough guy from Philadelphia that loves wrestlers. He's going to play the 4-2-5, and which is the most common defense probably in college football. But what's going to be unique about Jim Knowles is he's going to bring a toughness to this defense that's going to resemble kind of the Luke Fickell era. Luke Fickell is probably the last offensive coordinator you think of at the Buckeyes that brought a toughness about him, had kind of this, like, you don't mess with him. I mean, the guy smokes cigars. He's a vegan. He runs marathons. I mean, it's a different cat that's coming to Columbus right now. But Ryan Day goes and gets this guy, really because of why. He goes and finds him because the guy's coached at places where he didn't have 4- and 5-star guys. He coached at Duke, and he coached at Duke for 7 years. David Cutcliffe is one of the best minds to ever grace a football field. For Cut to give that guy the defense, because Cut's so involved in the offense, he's got great leadership ability. Then he goes to Oklahoma State, where Mike Gundy is notorious for going and getting the lesser recruited type of coach, brings them to Stillwater, and starts playing defense in the Big 12, which they haven't played defense there since the 1980s. So now you bring this now to the Big 10, where everyone does play great defense. And really, that's the missing calling card right now, Brendan. I mean, right now, we could be talking about a college football playoff for the Buckeyes if, defensively, which everyone knows could have played a little bit better this year. Really, it could have been a different year for the Buckeyes.
This, for those who are not intimately familiar with what Jim Knowles' defense looked like this year at Oklahoma State, by just about every statistical measurement, they were elite. In some cases, top 5 in the country. In defensive efficiency, they truly only trailed Georgia's defense throughout the entire season. I mean, that's a really high, mark to achieve, considering the ad nauseum conversation we heard across college football this year about just how good Georgia's defense is. Maybe it didn't look so good last weekend. In the meantime, just to shine a little light on this, they were Oklahoma State under Jim Knowles this year, 3rd in the country in total defense, 5th in rushing defense, 12th in passing yards allowed, 8th in scoring defense. They were the 2nd best 3rd down unit. They were the 6th best 4th down unit, and they were 9th in first downs allowed. I mean, they really did a good job, as you said, in a league that has been so heavily predicated on offense for so long. It was almost a little bit odd to see an Oklahoma State team, which has had that kind of offensive reputation, play the defense that they did this year. And if it weren't for a crazy ending there and, in that conference championship game, they might be in the college football playoff right now.
I mean, they settled down. They had that first quarter where, Baylor hit a couple big plays on them. And then after they hit these big plays, the next thing you know, you're looking at this defense who just shut them down the rest of the way out. And Baylor was known for being a really good offensive team this year. Dave Aranda went out, revamped the entire offense, hired a new OC, new O-line coach, said we're going to be a different type of offense, and they were. And then, at the end of the game, you talk about a game of interest. I know you and I talked about this off air. You show how important it is to tackle. Baylor won the Big 12 championship game because they were able to tackle. There were 2 plays there on the 1 goal line stand they made where they held them to a field goal. They came back. They held them to 3 and out. That's that defense that's coming to Columbus, held them for 3 and out. Then it's 4th, and the game's on the line. The championship game's on the line. And the nickel, the Ronnie Hickman of the Baylor Bear defense, is able to tackle the running back mere inches away from the pylon, helping Baylor make this unbelievable run. And it comes back to tackling. And that's the one thing these Buckeye fans have watched all year. They haven't seen consistent tackling. And you're going to see a better group of tacklers. You're going to see a more fundamentally sound group of tacklers. It's going to be a lot of controlled chaos on defense. And these guys are going to start playing really, really hard for him. And now you add into the equation 4- and 5-star recruits, plus a guy who's from Philadelphia, where the Buckeyes have done pretty well in the past of going and getting those guys that are good players in that Philadelphia, Delaware region, in New Jersey, right there over the river. There are some good football players there. So he's going to be able to go back to his roots. He's going to be acquired taste for some guys, but realistically, it's going to be a breath of fresh air. And Ryan Day is such a smart person when it comes to football. He watched probably a lot of Oklahoma State football and goes, wow, that's the guy. Like, that's the guy I want running my defense. And I know I was on here. I wanted a tough guy like Barry Odom. This guy blew Barry Odom out of the water. So this is a great job, really by Ryan Day and his group of people in the building, looking to find the next answer and not really worrying about geographical ties, not worrying about who can coach football. And that's what he did by making this hire.
Jim Knowles, many people expected would win the Broyles Award for the top assistant coach in the country. That ended up going to Josh Gaddis, the offensive coordinator for the team up north. But Knowles certainly was under heavy consideration for the job he did this year. To clarify the original report from Austin, essentially multiple sources that are outside of Ohio State's program believe that this is essentially a done deal. It's in principle, and they have an understanding they're going to move forward. But there are a lot of different things at play here with National Signing Day and that early signing period next week on Wednesday. Obviously, you've got a bowl game coming up. You've got guys that are currently on your staff. This news has not been confirmed by anybody within Ohio State's program, and that probably means you're going to need to have some kind of a corresponding move. I guess I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here, but considering, Larry Johnson, sort of where he is in his coaching tenure, he's certainly on the back end of his career, and he's done an unbelievable job on the defensive line. You've got, a guy in Al Washington coaching the linebackers who last year was a hot commodity himself. Obviously, there were a lot of comments and thoughts about the job that Kerry Combs did this year and Matt Barnes. Some positive, some negative. Certainly, it seemed to get better as the season went along when those guys made some changes. Do you have any thoughts on what a best situation could be when you have a new coordinator come in? Is it best for that coordinator to start with a clean slate? Is it okay for a coordinator to inherit some of the position coaches? Take us behind the scenes from that angle. I'm not asking you to say, fire this guy, fire that guy, he's gone, whatever. It's a matter of what's it like to be in that position?
Coming in as that defensive coordinator, in my brief career, I only had one time where I came in as an offensive coordinator and I inherited the guys that were already on staff. And when that happened, the first thing you do is you spend a lot of time with these guys. You get to learn who they are. You get to understand what makes them tick. And one of the things I think that great coaches have is the gift of humility. He's going to look around the room and he's going to say, all right, Larry Johnson's been coaching D-line at a very high level for a very long time. When you want to go get a defensive lineman, you're sending Larry Johnson into the house to go get the guy. And you're bringing Larry back to Larry because Larry's going to develop the guy. That's the other thing. Larry's not just a recruiter. He can develop these guys. And then in addition, he's going to feel out Al Washington. He's going to see where Matt Barnes is at. He's going to see where Kerry Coombs is at. And the thing with Kerry is, Kerry and Matt both have been special teams coordinators. So there's not necessarily a move where he has to move one of those guys. You could actually make one of them a co-coordinator on the special teams or, a different way to kind of adjust things to kind of keep those guys on the defensive side of the football. Because Those guys are really bringing really good players into Columbus, and that's important as well. But it's also having the right guy, at the trigger that can make that move. And, for Ryan Day to go make that move, he already kind of in his mind is going to try to make that decision for Jim Knowles. Like Jim Knowles is not going to have to come in and probably make that decision who the guy is that's going to be becoming an analyst or a senior consultant or whatever term we're going to use in college football, where nowadays these guys are still making assistant coaching money, but are on the sideline. I mean, you watch Ohio State, you watch Alabama, you watch Georgia. There are guys that have been big time Power 5 head coaches and assistant coaches helping out. And they're not.
I just saw earlier today, Nick Saban's 2015 coaching staff. Looking at it now in 2021, it is like laughable. The guys that are now Power 5 head coaches: Billy Napier, Mel Tucker, Steve Sarkisian, whom I miss, Lane Kiffin, all on the same staff as assistants under Alabama's legendary coach Nick Saban a few years ago. I tend to agree. I don't think you can ever have too many good heads in the room.
And what it does is you have to decide who's the guy you're taking off the field. And what I mean by off the field is not necessarily a practice. And I haven't been to Ohio State practice, so I don't know how it operates, but I know at some places they're a little bit more flexible with letting the analysts do some things. Technically, an analyst is not allowed to coach. For those of you that don't know, an analyst is not allowed to actually coach a player on the field. They can run film sessions. They can meet with them. They can do a lot of things. They cannot run drills on the field. And they are also legally not allowed to leave campus to go recruit. You can only have 10 people on the road plus your head coach during this time of the year. Ryan Day will not go on the road in the spring. So Division I FBS head coaches do not go on the road in the spring. They only go in during this winter signing period aspect from there. But what you do see is a big question for Jim Knowles to really feel out and learn what makes these guys tick, but also he's going to come in with these guys are going to have the humility as well to understand his defense and the way he's going to attack it and the drills he's going to do. And it's going to be a tough transition. It's always a hard transition. And because it's something new and you have these new defensive guys working together. The Kerry Combs experiment did not work at the defensive coordinator position, but not to say that Kerry has not had an incredible impact on the Ohio State University football program, on the way that they recruit, the way that they proceed. He's a big part of it. So you have to figure out where all these guys fit. And that's why Ryan Day is Ryan Day. And he's going to be able to make that decision probably best for his program.
One more thing here, and it's not necessarily about Jim Knowles, but it was news today about Ohio State, the transfer portal, and potential defense. And I just think that because we are entering this, I mean, I used the word Wild West earlier. It is like the ungoverned, go crazy, state of being that college football lives in. There's a report out there that Elias Ricks, the LSU transfer cornerback who the Buckeyes had been courting, that Ohio State is no longer in the running to try to bring him in. I'm curious as a coach and as a coordinator, how difficult is it for you to try to stay on top of all these moving pieces and, frankly, coach, to stay focused on what you're trying to accomplish when you got all this other stuff going on that maybe you can't control going around you?
Well, one thing, I have to celebrate the athletes because they have the ability now to go do this, and they should. They're watching their coaches, the guys that are their mentors, the guys that are their leaders, doing the same thing. Guys are in houses one night, and then the next day they're wearing a different lapel pin, talking about how incredible it is to be at Baton Rouge. So they pick up an accent all of a sudden that they never had coming from Boston. But regardless, it doesn't matter. You got to let these kids have the same flexibility to do this. And I think when you're a coach, and we've talked about this before, it's a great responsibility to develop these young men, to help them grow. But where you really, really take that next step is you recruit these guys every day. Don't have a player question whether or not you're invested in him and his process, because that's when they start looking around. That's when they start looking out the window. That's when they start reading text messages. That's when they're going on Twitter and, man, I'm a dog and they're not taking care of me. When you recruit these guys the right way, night in and night out, and it's just who you are, those guys aren't willing to jump as quickly. And there are certain situations where you take care of a guy, he doesn't play, or maybe there's something where he doesn't fit in with, culturally with what you're trying to accomplish. But that's the biggest thing is if you're germane to who you were in the recruiting process and you're genuine with that young man throughout the entire, the entirety of his relationship with you, not only as a player, but also as an alum, that gives you the ability to retain guys and help them develop and help them grow. You can't just go around chasing guys in the portal, because that's what's going to happen is you're going to end up not recruiting the kids that are important every single day that are in your program. You forget to tell them thank you. And all of us have different lines of work that we're in professionally. And there's all people that help us in our daily lives. And I tell guys this all the time. If you're not helping, if those people that help you every day, you never recognize that, eventually they're going to go somewhere where they do recognize it. Like, I know this, if my wife makes a great dinner or I make a great dinner and we don't recognize it for each other, eventually somebody else is going to be making that dinner. And I think it's important that you appreciate these people and you show them respect, you show them the gratitude that, because as a college coach, a lot of these guys got into this profession not to make this ungodly money that they're making. They make ungodly money. They live in these incredible houses. They have all these nice things. Because why? Because these kids believe in them. And these kids on Saturdays and Sundays and Mondays, whenever they're playing, they give them literally everything they have. And that was one thing you saw Manny Diaz yesterday in that little bit that was on Twitter and it went viral. He thanked those kids for the last 3 years who gave everything they had to the University of Miami. This is a guy who he goes second.
Oh, almost lost him. There we go. Got you back. Oh, hold on. Missing your audio. We got your video back. We'll get you straightened out there. I think we're gonna disconnect and reconnect, but the concept of Manny Diaz and what he had put up yesterday. I think I had kind of shared that tweet and said that I thought that it sometimes those things play out too publicly. Coach, we got you back here. Sorry about that.
One of the disadvantages of being on your phone during a workday, it's getting a lot of calls. Anyways, I say that it's important. When I said Manny Diaz, those kids gave their all to Miami for those 3 years. They did everything they could to make sure Miami was a greater program. And Manny was the second winningest coach in the ACC over that 3-year period. And then, I think Brendan, I caught the tail end of it, publicly, to have that drawn out that way. There's nothing that's not fair to anybody. And, I'm not saying that Mario Cristobal is not the right guy to take the Hurricanes back to the U, but what the advances they made under Manny, it's tough to do that to people. But I say all that to come back in a round circle. It's being appreciative of what these kids do. And when you do that, they're not willing to look out the window that quickly because they believe in you, they believe in the process, and they believe that you have their best interest at heart. And that's what you really hope is the case for majority of these young men before they get into that portal.
Well, I'm interested to see what the windfall is going to be at Ohio State if and when this is announced. Again, I'm not sure if they're going to make an announcement. I would be surprised if they make any announcement pre-signing day. But now that this is out there, perhaps, they can acknowledge some things when they're talking to recruits. I'm not entirely sure. I would like to believe that Ryan Day is not going to just suddenly, cut ties with the staff that he's got, because as you pointed out, there has been a tremendous amount of value in the guys that, for example, Kerry Combs has brought in. I mean, he is truly one of the elite recruiters in college football. And I think there is a place for him at Ohio State. It might just not be coordinating the defense. We've got lots more to break down along the way. Obviously, we're following this news, but this is just a quick instant analysis type reaction to the breaking news this afternoon. And Coach, we appreciate you taking some time out of the workday to jump on with us.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully it's going to lead to better defensive effort and obviously a little bit more prestigious bowl games. Well, let's not take a step back. Playing in the Rose Bowl is still an outstanding opportunity for the Buckeyes, and we got a lot to cover leading up to it. Looking forward to it. Thanks for the time. Jim Knowles reportedly heading to Ohio State at some point. Exactly when, pre-signing day, post-signing day, pre-bowl, post-bowl, we're not sure. But it sounds like Ryan Day and the Buckeyes may have their guy as a defensive coordinator. All the latest over on BuckeyesNow.com and on our social media channels. Buckeyes Now on SI. See you soon.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. Is the question on a lot of people's minds here.
Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.